Hey, everybody, it's Ryan. Thanks for downloading today's show. And just a reminder, as always, Wake Up War Chant is brought to you by our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central and Township, in the heart of College Town. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, from Tallahassee to Thomasville, and from coast to Atlantic coast, it's time to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. And it's a very happy Tuesday morning, October the 10th, to you and yours. You're currently listening to the voice of Ryan Kelly. I'm the director of digital media at warchant.com. My goodness, it's so good to talk to you actually here at 6 o'clock in the morning. As you probably know, just from what I've been telling you the last couple days, us being under the weather, and of course, you know how you sound in the morning. We've had to be pre-taping these for a little bit, and so we're finally a little healthy enough to give this a go in the morning again. So so forgive me if my voice goes out a little towards the end and I start sounding like a monster truck announcer. But we're going to try to power through this because we know we got to get back to these live shows, and we got to get back to getting you here in the morning on 6 a.m., 97.9 ESPN Radio. And thanks so much for waking up with us here. Currently listening to the voice of Ryan Kelly. I'm the director of digital media at warchant.com, and our friend Drew Hickens on the other side of the glass, making things work today. Drew, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm getting there. Like I said, I'm going to try to survive. I'm going to keep this thing going, but we're going to get it done. Anyway, like I said, thanks so much for waking up with us here over the airwaves from 97.9, or maybe it's one of our apps that you're streaming us on. Tune in. WTSM, ESPNTallahassee.com. You know the places. You know the podcast. You know it's on iTunes, Podcast Republic, War Chant Radio, YouTube, any of those places that you can find the show. That's all right there. And, of course, if you want to reach out to the show, radio@warchant.com, at Wake Up War Chant. You have your ways to do so. You know you can get it done. And finally, of course, our friends at For the Table are who power this whole thing. Madison Social, Central and Township, all right there in the heart of College Town. So we only had so many minutes to break down Florida State Miami yesterday, the game itself, all of that. And I feel like we did a pretty good job for breaking it down in as short a time as we had. But there is one thing I wanted to talk about until we started moving on, talking what does that loss mean big picture? What does all that stuff put together when you mix it all in? And that's the idea that Jimbo Fisher defended Florida State's defense on that game-winning play. And actually defended his defense in a general. We'll do that a little bit later when we play a little game of Duly Quoted. But until then, it was Jimbo Fisher who said that T-Mac had been in man-to-man coverage the whole day. They're obviously playing press coverage on the line there at the end. And a lot of people thought, maybe that's not the place to do it. And I will say this, and I said this on the podcast on Saturday when we wrap this up. People complain for so long that they want Florida State in press coverage. They want everybody jammed at the line. And then they finally do it at a point where, let's face it, maybe isn't the wisest decision to do it. And I'll say this, man-to-man was the right call. Florida State in man was good for most of the day. They felt like they had the athletes, and it was also the idea that we're going to shut the run down and we're going to force Rozier to beat you with his arm, and it just so happened on the final drive he's able to do it against your best corner.
Yeah, it's just, that's not really the place to do it. I agree that man probably is the best call there, but again, at the end of the drive, you're not trying to stop the run because they're not going to run the football there. Press coverage there obviously is a time and a place for it because I do think we do have very high-level corners. However, with 11 seconds to go on the 24-yard line where all they can do is take a shot in the end zone is not really the time or place to do it. And a lot of people do want to pin it on McFadden, but none of this isn't on McFadden. It's on the defense as a whole because, listen, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. The throw was perfect. Rozier's throw is perfect. It would have beat anyone. It is what it is, but you can't be in that situation for that to have happened. And he did stop. They took two or three shots at him a couple plays prior on the other side of the end zone. So you knew it was coming. I think that's the most baffling part. And I'm not even sure you had the help on those plays. It's just you didn't really dive back and go look into them again because McFadden was able to knock them down. But as far as Jimbo defending it, what else do you want him to say? Is he going to come out there and he's going to rip Charles Kelly and he's going to rip his players or anything like that? Like, no, that's not what's going to happen. I know that's what a lot of people think. That's what a lot of people want to hear. They want Jimbo to come out with some fire and rip some people. It's not going to go down like that. So when Jimbo doesn't come out and say, Charles Kelly is going to lose his job, spoiler alert, he's not going to come right out and say that. I hate to break it to all of you. Maybe it would bring some people some ease to hear that Jimbo's as upset and as frustrated as we are. I understand, but that's just not the way that it's going to go down.
I think overall, one of the things that we didn't get a chance to talk about yesterday, though, was what does this loss mean big picture-wise? I mean, there's the no-brainer. It means you're 1-3. It means that your free fall continues, and it means that this streak is over. But here's the thing that I think it means more than anything. I think, and I even said this on Twitter after the game, as much as people didn't want to hear it in the moment, and maybe people don't want to hear it now, at least until Florida State wins another dadgum football game, it's the idea that, listen, this one stung. But the thing is, for changes to be made at Florida State, for Florida State to move on from kind of the limbo they've been in now for a good 3-4 years, something like this had to happen. Something had to change in the status quo, because, I mean, you can say what you want about Florida State not being able to get the job done last year, getting embarrassed by Louisville or something like that. Florida State still played Clemson close. Florida State still had a shot at the Atlantic Division. Florida State still beat its rivals. Florida State still went to a New Year's Six Bowl. Florida State still ended up winning that game. You can say the same thing about 2015. You know what? Yeah, sure. Florida State lost to a bad Georgia Tech team. They still went to a New Year's Six Bowl. They still beat Miami. They still beat Florida. And heck, people forget that trip to Clemson in 2015 had if Florida State can pull off this upset, they're in the driver's seat in the Atlantic and playoff implications. People forget that about that game. The status quo has been held at Florida State since 2013. I mean, 14, obviously, you go to the playoff. 15, you had a shot later in the season at it. How realistic it was or not, you had a shot. 16, there was the idea that, if you beat Clemson, you at least maybe get a shot at the Atlantic because of what happened with Pitt and all that. You're not going to the playoff, but at the very least, you can end with a respectable season, and you did end with a respectable season. That's out the window now. This is done. Yeah, sure. Was last year a disappointment? Sure. But it was good enough by Florida State standards to keep things the same. This is it. This is the floor you're hitting. And I know I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's a good chance that Florida State could lose more because you're smart. You know there's a good chance that Florida State could lose more. If you want things to change, if you want the problems to boil to the surface so it's easier to scoop them out, this is what's happening right now, and that's why that loss was necessary.
Yeah, for me too. I know a lot of people want to try to say that this is going to be a recruiting tool and whatnot, and I'm sure Miami will use it in that way. But I think most people with a brain can watch that football game and see where Florida State's at. And by no means, unless Miami goes on and runs the table or loses one game and goes and plays in the Coastal, Miami's not back, all right? They beat the probably the worst Florida State team since 2010. With a true freshman quarterback who's 18 years old, with a guy who's been on their campus for 4 years. You know what? Maybe it's not going to be pretty, and they needed to get over the hump, and so be it. But by no means am I ready to declare the U back from that win. And really, for what this game means to me is, listen, this season is already pretty much washed. I just want to see how the team responds from here. Are they going to go ahead and quit on this season, or are they going to fight it out and still win 7 or 8 games? We'll see. I think, it could really go one way or the other, and I think that'll say a lot. But I think what people need to remember is not by any means is 1-3 ever acceptable at Florida State. I know that. But if you go and you look at the schedule and you look at the hand that the team was dealt a little bit, it's not that shocking if you if you had known, because listen, a lot of people already kind of figured we weren't going to win that Alabama game. I know a lot of us had some hope, and we thought that we were good enough to win it, but it was a coin flip, tough football game. And NC State's not as bad as we originally thought, and Miami, I guess, is still undefeated. So when you have a true freshman quarterback, it's not all that surprising when you go and look at it. Like I said, 1-3 is by no means acceptable, but I think this taps into a little bit more of the reality that people can start to understand, and it's the cruel, harsh truth of college football, and that is at sometimes, I'm not saying not 1-3, but when you're not Alabama, seasons like this, the past couple of years, they're going to happen. You're not going to win the national title 4 out of 7 years. And as much as people like to think that their team and their school is on par with Bama, it's just Bama, and then there's a tier of everyone else. That's just the reality of the situation.
Well, I feel like Florida State itself, not the fans, I feel like the actual program itself needed this reminder that it's not Alabama. That the way things are going, the way things have been done, this annual stub your toe a couple times, but it's okay because you beat Miami, Florida, and you went to a decent bowl. By the standards that you set, when Jimbo Fisher comes out every offseason and says a national championship is always the goal, when that's the standard you set for yourself, and you've routinely done this over the last couple of years, I mean, I get it. 2015, you get a pass. That team was going to be a rebuild from beginning to end. We said that literally the Monday after they lost that crazy game to Georgia Tech. But, after last season and this season, it's very, very clear that you're not living up to the goals you set for yourself. Not that the fans have given you, not that's been pushed on you by outside expectations, the ones that you welcome in. When Jimbo Fisher goes to Bristol in that car wash every year and he says, we should be playing for a national championship. We should be right there neck and neck with Clemson in our division. We should be right there with the Alabamas and the Ohio States. When you're not going out and getting that done, but, well, we beat our rivals and we went to a good bowl, you can't have that both ways. And I think this is finally the validation, the confirmation of that. And by the way, I don't think Miami's as talented as Florida State at the moment. I don't. But I don't think that a win certainly doesn't hurt Miami on the recruiting trail. Miami, of course, right now, the number 2 class rated according to Rivals, 14 4-stars in that class. And that gives them one of the best average star ratings in that class, 3.95. That's right behind Ohio State, who has 4 even, and they're the number 1 class in the country at the moment. Of course, a lot of things can change until signing day, but you get what I'm trying to say. Right now, the gap's closing. It's closing. It's not there yet, but it's closing. And the thing is, Miami is the tougher of the 2 schools in the state of Florida to close that gap. Because, of course, Florida's got the money, Florida's got the facilities, the fan base, and the time. Miami doesn't always have the money. They don't always have the facilities. But you know what they have right now? A dynamite head coach and a dynamite coaching staff. And they're able to make up for it at the point.
I agree with you that the gap is closing. And yeah, maybe their recruiting class is what it is right now, but you see this kind of time and time again with Miami every year where their class is highly ranked, and near the end they tend to fall off. Now, maybe if they're able to go and win the Coastal and actually have a substantial season, that won't happen. We'll see. I don't know, because they haven't had that precedent set in God knows how long. It's been a long time. So, yes, I do think the gap is closing. But do I think that Miami is on the same tier as Florida State? No. Could they get back to that? Yeah, I guess. I just don't understand why anybody wants to go play for a school where 30,000 people show up to your football games. I think that's always, until they get that situation under control, I think that's going to greatly plague them. And I don't think that just has to do with them not being very good. I think it has to do with several different factors, one of which they don't have a stadium on campus, one. And two, Miami is they're just kind of like that. You see the Dolphin games and no one shows up to those either. So it's just, I think that's something that
heck, the Heat was the best team in the NBA for half a decade, and playoff games wouldn't sell out. I mean, that's just kind of the reality of big market sports. That's just kind of how it works. Unless you are elite and you're playing an elite team, if there's something better to do, people are gonna go do it, and that's just kind of the reality there. I'm not a fool or a stooge to say that. And I'm also not here to tell you that Miami is going to build a dynasty out of one win, because it's not going to happen. We've had that discussion before. The realities of the Miami Hurricanes right now, I think, are that you can't build a consistently elite program, but you can put together years where you are elite.
And I also wonder, you talked about it time and time again, and I agree with you. This should be the wake-up call that maybe, the staff changes need to be made and whatnot. But we talked about it after the Bama game when Francois went down. Is this staff, is Jimbo in a hole going to be given a mulligan for this season because Francois got hurt? Are you not living up to the expectations you set for yourself because you're underperforming or because you don't have your starting quarterback and you have a true freshman out there? Now, for me personally, I still think, and I think the team would tell you too, now national title, I think, maybe they wouldn't say it to you, but I think we all agreed that the national title went out the window with Francois' injury. I think we all thought that. But I'll tell you this, they know, I think you could ask the team, they know that they've now blown 2 games since Francois has been hurt, and you could argue they let the Bama game slip away from them too, even when they had Francois. So that's 3 out of 4 games where you felt like you really had a chance to win the football game, and here you are, and you felt like, and I'll just go ahead and chalk the Bama game up as not blowing. Listen, you blew 2 football games. You blew the NC State game. You should have won that game. Everyone knows it. And you blew the Miami game, really, in my mind, 2 times. I think both of those defensive drives, I feel like you blew the game because I think if you stop them on either one of those, the way that game is going, the way that James Blackman was playing, the way that Cam Akers was running the football, the way that Jaquez Patrick is running the football, you feel pretty good about your chances of being able to get a first down and have Miami use their timeouts, and that would be it. Or even if you get the stop there and they have to kick a 49-yard field goal just to take it into overtime. Who knows if the kid even makes it? I know he's really good, but you saw last year they had to kick an extra point to tie it and go into overtime and it got blocked. So kicking isn't exactly, something that goes all that well in the Miami-Florida State series.
I'll tell you what, because we're barging on some stuff that Jimbo Fisher said in his press conference, or at least alluded to, and I wanted to get to that in Duly Quoted. So I'll tell you what, we'll do while you were sleeping, then we'll come back. We'll play Duly Quoted because there's a lot of stuff to dive into there. But first of all, we got to get you caught up. There was some baseball yesterday. There was some hockey yesterday. There was a really bad Monday Night Football game yesterday. We're going to get to all of it, ladies and gents. It's While You Were Sleeping.
Hello. Good morning. Wake up. Wake up. Wake me up. Good morning. Good morning.
What happened last night?
Mitch Trubisky makes his regular season debut for the Chicago Bears, and it goes about as planned. The Bears lose 20-17. Sam Bradford, the winning quarterback, in his return. Well, I say return from injury, but it was very, very clear in that game, if you watched any of it, he was still hurt.
Well, they brought in Keenum in the second half. So, I guess you could say that Bradford was the winning quarterback, but he didn't do anything. It was really Keenum who articulated that win. So,
gosh, watching the Vikings kind of dead man float through quarterbacks now that Bridgewater's out is just yikes. And I hate that for that organization. I hate that for Teddy because Teddy seems like such a good kid. And I'll tell you what, I wanted him coming out of college. But anyway, in Major League Baseball, it's Houston who says adios to the Boston Red Sox. 5-4 at Fenway Park. Houston eliminates the Red Sox from the playoffs. 2-1, the Cubbies win at Wrigley. They lead that series over the Nationals 2-1 as well. The Yankees force a Game 5 at Progressive Field. 7-3, Bronx Bombers over the Cleveland Indians. And finally, the Los Angeles Dodgers sweep the Diamondbacks out of the series. It's 3-1. They will advance to the NLCS. In hockey news, well, a couple different games to report. It's the Colorado Rockies over the Boston Bruins 4-0. On top of that, oh, hold on, I lost my thought here. It's the St. Louis Blues over the Islanders 3-2. And, of course, the Devils beat the Buffalo Sabres 6-2. Toronto in overtime fends off the Blackhawks 4-3 at home. The Lightning with a nice little win over the Capitals in OT 4-3. Winnipeg 5-2 over the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton. Calgary beats Anaheim 2-0. That may just kind of seem like a run-of-the-mill hockey score, but it puts to end one of the weirdest and most incredible streaks in hockey. Calgary, who plays in Anaheim a couple times a year, right, has not won in Anaheim since 2004. That's a ton of games. But all good things must come to an end. All right, when we come back, we're hearing from the man himself, Mr. Jimbo Fisher, playing a game of Duly Quoted on Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio. I can deal with some Pearl Jam on a Tuesday. Welcome back to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Ryan Kelly, Drew Hicken here with you as you start your day. As I said, there was a lot of interesting comments at Jimbo Fisher's press conference yesterday, and you know we like to do this from time to time. Usually on Tuesday, after Jimbo Fisher's done saying his piece, we try to make sense of it all and some of his more interesting quotes. It was really hard just picking a couple this week. But I know there's especially one that everybody wants to know. So let's go ahead and do this thing, folks. This is Duly Quoted.
Quote mode.
We have ways of making talk.
You talking to me?
Okay, I'll stop.
You know I talk too much.
End quote mode.
All right. First of all, you know which one we're talking about. It was on our Twitter feed yesterday. It was the ever talked about, ever broke down, ever analyzed situation when Jimbo Fisher is asked by a reporter over the phone his thoughts on Charles Kelly. And it sounded a little something like this.
I have extreme confidence in Charles. Charles is a great football coach. He coached a very good game. They made a couple plays at the end, and he's done a really nice job. So we'll continue. Charles being our coordinator, and we'll go through this year, and hopefully finish the year very strong.
All right, so there it is, and it's what everybody wants to break down. Did Jimbo Fisher slip up when he said, we'll get through the end of the year? It's the ever overanalyzed. Everybody wants to break it down 6 ways to Sunday. Does it mean something? I don't know. I mean, I think he did exactly what he had to do in that situation. I mean, he's not going to say he sucks and I'm going to kick him to the curb and I'm going to fire all these coaches too and you're going to like it. Like you're not going to do that. That's the thing about Jimbo Fisher's press conference yesterday, and even the one that he had on Saturday. And don't get me wrong, the one he had on Saturday, he poured it on a little too thick. You shouldn't have congratulated Florida State after that game. Even if you believe that in your heart of hearts, even if that's what you told your team, you know your fan base is upset. You shouldn't have said stuff like that. You probably also shouldn't have, even if it was true, because it obviously was true. Rozier makes the one play at the end of the game. That's how Miami wins it. When you say you're just a play away, that kind of brings up memories of the lost decade where Bobby Bowden said that a lot. And you were here for some of that, and you got to hear some of that. So I don't particularly think that he handled Saturday as well as he could. I do think he handled Monday about as well as he could. And he gave the answer that he had to give here. And that's the thing. I think we're looking too much into it. But at the same time, I think there is merit to the idea that he's just looking to get through the end of this year, and then he's going to see what he can do. And that's what you knew was going to happen with Jimbo Fisher. It wasn't going to be firings midseason. I mean, this is a guy who's never fired an assistant coach that's actually coached a game at Florida State. Of course, there was that thing a couple years ago, and it looked like they had a coordinator hired, or at least some new defensive personnel hired, and that all changed off season. But in terms of actually getting guys who've been ingrained in the system moved on, it's never happened. I think you know right now it's definitely going to happen, but it was never going to happen midseason. And the thing is, you know it's going to get through the end of the year. That's where I think Jimbo Fisher's mind is at when he's saying that.
Yeah, I can't sit here and say I don't think anyone knows, obviously. Will there be staff changes made? I think absolutely. Will one of those be Charles Kelly? I have no idea. And I can tell you one thing for certain. Like you just said, it won't be during the year. No one's getting fired during the year. That's just a fact. We're getting to the end of the year regardless. So whether you want to look too much into the quote or not, it really doesn't matter because it's not going to give you what you want, which is a new defensive coordinator tomorrow. For all of those, an outrage. That's just not going to happen. I get it. Like I said, I'm not disagreeing with a lot of people. I'm as outraged as anybody. I hated those last 2 drives of that football game where they had 200 however many yards on 150 yards on 2 drives, which I think you said 71% of their offense or something like
44.5.
44%. just crazy. So not only that, not only just the Miami game, Florida State is becoming well known for this, whether it be this game or the North Carolina game, or I really can't off the top of my head say all the other ones, but I guarantee you there's about another 6 or 7 in just the last 2 or 3 years where Florida State has blown a football game where your defense needs to stop on the last drive. So this isn't something that's just coming to light in the Miami game. It's something that for whatever reason they can play good football for however, until the last 2-3 minutes of the game when it's winning time.
Well, here's the thing, and I know Florida State fans don't want to hear it. You're the Clemson now. That's what you've become. You've become the Clemson. You're the team in the ACC that nobody can rely on, and everybody thinks is going to stub their toe, and nobody quite knows how they do it because they have all this talent. You role reversed with Clemson about 3 years ago. When you eventually lost that game in 2015, it swapped. And now you're that team, and you've got to fix that. It wasn't all bad, though, for Florida State. If there's one thing that really shined bright and has shined bright the last couple weeks, it's Cam Akers, and Jimbo Fisher had a lot to say about him as well.
Well, he's turned the corner, but what we've talked to him about is that, like I said last week, not every run is there's another huge improvement from last week. That not every run is a touchdown. They're learning to take that 4-yard run, that 5-yard run, that 6, and all of a sudden your size and speed, you'll start breaking those runs, in which he did, running north-south. It's not that he doesn't like the physicality. He's just used to being able to bounce around guys and outrun guys and make plays. This level, there's good players. And he's learning to run behind his pads and low level with power. He's doing a great job.
Now, what Coach said there is very, very apparent when you see that game Saturday, especially if you rewatch it. That game's starting to slow down for him. And on top of that, Cam Akers is like a lot of these guys, especially the ones who don't come from the Floridas, the Georgias, the Texases, the Californias. They are accustomed to always being the best player on the field at all times. And any play, no matter how good or bad it is or how broken down it is, they feel like they can score. And that's not the reality in actual college football. And now that Cam Akers is starting to get that and you're starting to see that, Jimbo Fisher's right. You know what? Sometimes that 3-4 yard gain that you're just picking up, maybe that play does break down. Maybe the safety's looking off that way. You get into the second level and you're gone. Maybe that's how it works. But it doesn't always have to be, well, I got to bounce here and bounce there and bounce here and bounce there till I can find that open edge. And I think you saw that on Saturday.
You saw it a little bit that he was starting to get it against Wake Forest, but he still had some runs where you thought, man, if you just get north-south like Jimbo says, that's a first down or that's a 5-6 yard gain instead of a 1 yard gain. That was the first game that you really saw Cam Akers just say, if I'm getting 2 yards, I'm getting 2 yards. I'm putting my head down, and that's what I'm going to take. And I'll say something about him now. I don't think acceleration-wise he's Dalvin Cook, because I think Dalvin Cook has a special burst. I think when you see Dalvin Cook do finally bounce runs outside, the corners he's able to turn are ridiculous. I don't really know if you're going to get another guy who can do something like that. But man, he brings a lot of physicality to the way he runs, and that move he had down on about the 15 where he broke, I think quarter minute was. I mean, this kid is special. I'm telling you right now, and that's just not me jumping the gun. That's not anyone jumping the gun. He is as good as advertised, and he brought it Saturday. And if he continues to run like that, I think you have higher hopes for what this offense can do. Regardless, it'll take a ton of pressure off Blackman. It'll take pressure off Jaquez. It'll let Jaquez move the ball more. If Cam is able to run like he did on Saturday, it'll do a world of difference for this offense.
All right, let's talk about the part that I knew that we were interfering on just a little bit in the end of that last segment. That's Jimbo Fisher was talked about those close games and how football is a game of inches, and it goes one way or the other. And here's what Coach had to say.
Not that it makes anybody feel better in the locker room, but like some of the games you played this year, can they be, I guess, examples of how thin the line can be between winning and losing sometimes?
Whether you won them or you lost them. And that's the thing we have done. Right? We had always found a way to win those games. For the most part, we won 82% of our games or 83% of our games. And we'd always found that one extra play. And that's what we're setting there short. But the same, it is. You show them how close, but how far. And then even when you win them, now we're all feeling good, but really how close you are to that line, the other way. But that's the way it always. That's the way college football, and as our league has gotten better, college football, the parity's going across the board. I mean, for the most part, that's kind of the way it goes. I mean, you saw this week with, and I don't mean, there's been upsets all over the place. Teams that get upset, and I think there's a lot more parity out there than we realize.
There is absolutely more parity than we realize, and I do agree with Coach there, especially at this high level of football, and especially when it's as well coached as it is at the moment. You want to know why there's no parity in the SEC at the moment? Why it's Alabama, Georgia, and friends? Because the coaching isn't there. You want to know why the Big Ten is really good right now? Because the coaching is there. You want to know why the ACC is a lot of fun to watch at the moment? Because the coaching is there. Good coaches bring about good games. And, of course, we've talked about that for the last couple years. You know, Jimbo Fisher, for as much as we knock on him, we all believe he's a good football coach. We all know that. It's been validated by a 29-game winning streak. It's been validated by 3 straight ACC titles, one of which, by the way, didn't come with Jameis Winston. It's been validated by 4 appearances in the ACC title game. Literally half the time he's been here, he's gone to an ACC title. But here's the thing. Some of those quote-unquote close games that Florida State's had over these last couple years shouldn't be close games. Listen, Wake was good last year, but with the talent that Florida State had last year, they shouldn't have played a 17-6 football game. Florida State ought not be getting ran off the field by Louisville the way they did last year. Florida State ought not be playing that game against NC State the way they played it this year, or even the one that they played last year. I agree that parity is a thing and that, you know, winning and losing can often come down to a couple plays, just like in the NFL. But here's the thing. Close games against Miami, that's fine. Close losses to Clemson, sure. But the occasional one that you have to sweat out against Boston College, NC State, when NC State's not as good as they are this year, that's what I think the problem is with this Florida State program. They've become too comfortable with flirting with that line, and now that line has finally betrayed them over the last 2 years, and it's made them have to do something.
Well, I think 2014 really put this mindset in a lot of kids' heads that they're able to just flip this switch in the fourth quarter because they're so much better than everybody else. If we're going to sleepwalk through 3 quarters of football, and when we look up and say, oh, we're only up 7, we'll flip the switch and we'll beat them by 3 scores. It's just not going to work like that anymore. It's never going to work like that.
Not in today's ACC.
And I do agree with Jimbo Fisher. I think today the college football, not just in the ACC, but all around, is becoming more and more like the NFL, and the fact that anyone can beat anyone on any Saturday. You're seeing it time and time again, more and more the last couple of years, where there's these huge upsets, but if you look at it, they continue to happen. It's not just Florida State, it's a lot of teams. And I do agree with you that they have become too comfortable flirting with that line. I do think that at least once a year, you know, it's okay. It's okay to flirt with disaster playing. It's going to happen.
But the thing is, for Florida State, literally since 2014, outside of a couple occasions, it's a weekly occurrence. It plays out like a 1960s Batman episode. You know what's coming.
Right. That's why I said it's okay to do it once a year or something to a team that's lesser of competition. I think you can mark that on any team's schedule where you say, oh well, this maybe this is the game that people aren't looking at that they could struggle in, and that's fine to do that once. But when you're doing it time and time again, and it becomes a habit like it has for Florida State so much, I think that's where you say the issue is coming in, and I tend to agree with that. And yeah, you're losing a lot of these really tight football games, but they're really not because of mistakes that you're making near the end of the football game. It's because of the mistakes you're making early on in the football game by not getting in the red zone, and time again you're settling for field goals. And you even saw it in the fourth quarter when, and I think a lot of us had a feeling that maybe it was going to come back to bite us. I'm not necessarily sure it was the wrong move with James Blackman, because you don't know how much trust Jimbo has in him in a 10-10 football game. When you have a 3rd and 8 and you have a chance to punch the ball in the end zone, you just kind of do a halfback draw and you say, you pretty much conceding, we'll take the 3 points and we'll lean on our defense. But how long can you lean on a defense throughout a football game, especially in the fourth quarter? I don't care how good you are. Sooner or later, when a defense has to carry a team an entire game, there's going to be a fatigue factor. I think more than anything, that you can place your hand on for those final 2 drives. I think that's what it was. I think you saw it on both sides because both teams struggled to move the ball until late in the fourth quarter when all of a sudden there was this explosion of points.
You know, you talked about, does Jimbo Fisher and the staff get a mulligan completely for this year? And the thing is, if James Blackman was continually the reason that you lost games, sure, fine. And you know what? He wasn't great in that first half. But he ends up being the reason you had a shot, and he ends up being a reason you had a lead late in that football game. The defense, the supposed strength of this team, cost this game for you. The offensive line, supposedly a veteran unit, cost this game for you. I feel like the problems that have plagued Florida State for the longest time are the same problems, and that's why they don't get a mulligan this year, because they've only been amplified by having to help a freshman quarterback, because the strengths of this team are supposed to help the supposed weakness.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you that you don't lose the game because of James Blackman, but at the same time, I'm willing to say that, in my personal opinion, there is no way Florida State loses that football game with DeAndre Francois playing quarterback. I think there's a lot of throws in that football game, big plays that Blackman missed, just plays that weren't made that were there, that you saw they were there, and he continuously doesn't make them, which I'm not saying is a knock on him. You expect that from him. You can't expect him to make all those plays that maybe Francois would make. But I'm telling you that, no, and I'm agreeing with you, they don't get a mulligan for blowing 2 football games. They just don't. But at the same time, you look back and you say, well, it's not because of James Blackman. And I agree, James Blackman's playing just about maybe as good as you'd say he was at times. But I'm saying that if it wasn't James Blackman and it was Francois, I'm almost positive we're not having the conversation we're having today. I think it's very easy to say that Florida State is more than likely sitting at 3-1, and we're talking about, does this team have the firepower to beat Clemson? Because I'm going to be honest with you, even if you do have Francois, this team has issues that weren't going to be fixed just by still having Francois. There's a lot of other issues around that we didn't think was going to be there this year. You thought that defense was going to be better. You thought that offensive line was going to have more cohesion, and both units have really struggled at times. And as much as we ripped the special teams, by the way, other than punt return, it's gotten much better since the Bama game.
Of course, there's plenty more from Jimbo Fisher to digest, and you can either do that by watching our video on warchant.com, or if you're listening to the podcast of the show, you can stick around for the end where we give your full press conference audio every day on Tuesday. We got more on the other end. It's Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Yes, Florida State just landed a 5-star commitment.
I don't see that anywhere online. How did you get that news so fast?
I'm on the new warchant.com app. I get news updates and scores pushed to my phone instantly.
How much does it cost?
It's free. Just go to iTunes or the Google Play Store, type in War Chant, and install it on your phone. That's it.
A free app that keeps me constantly up to date on Florida State sports and recruiting? Wow, that makes it incredibly easy to follow my Seminoles and never miss out.
With the app, you'll also get quick access to all the stories and features on War Chant, including the ever-popular message boards that feature thousands of fans talking about the Noles.
warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
Of course, if you want more to tickle your Florida State Miami funny bone and all that weekend, of course, our own Gene Williams has his 5-take columns. He's hopefully going to join us tomorrow to chit-chat a little bit about that. Michael Langston talked about the recruiting visits there. And, of course, we're going to talk more about what it means for the rest of the week. And I've been interested to see how people react in terms of, am I renewing my tickets next year? Am I not? What am I doing? Am I doing this? Am I going to up my booster contribution? Seeing all that play out on Twitter in real time has been a lot of fun as we return here. Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by your friends at For the Table. Of course, the best happy hour in town goes on tonight, 4 to 7, right there in the heart of College Town. Madison Social, Central Township, 3 different places, 3 different experiences, 1 great deal. Make sure you're out there for the best in town on a Tuesday night. But I'm fascinated by all that because, well, let's face it, there are some other places at FSU that if boosters aren't giving to that football program, it gets a little interesting. Where does that money go? Do boosters keep that money in their pocket, or do they donate to other programs? And the only reason I bring that up, and I'm not trying to insinuate anything here, but yesterday Florida announces they're building a new $50 million baseball stadium. They're going to tear the cinder block down, which is a shame because I love making fun of the cinder block. Do boosters just say, sayonara, you're not getting my money? Or does basketball and baseball end up getting more?
Neither. Football is going to continue to get all the money. That's just how I feel. I think it's a brash overreaction to sit there and say that. And
so you think the folks who are saying my booster contribution this and
they're full of it. At the end of the day, they're going to give their booster contribution, and the folks who aren't going to renew their tickets because of the way the season has gone, they probably have only been fans since 2013, and it's about the weakest thing I've ever heard. Unless it's just I'm not making I'm not making fun of anyone who's out. If it's just strictly off performance based, if that's why you're not renewing your tickets, you're nothing about being a fan of any team. Because sometimes these things happen. So, but no, I don't think you have to worry about boosters taking their money elsewhere. 1 and 2, renew your tickets, come to the games. But as far as Florida goes with getting that, I mean, they just won a national title in baseball. So I think if you saw Florida State win a national title in baseball, that the talks of maybe getting a new stadium, I think would be accelerated a little bit, but. Maybe until that happens, or because Jimbo is the thing about Florida getting that baseball stadium is they're going to knock that down, and they're going to have there's talks they're going to build a football facility, a big one for.
That's also the talk here.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So as much as Jimbo's going to push for that, and Jimbo tends to get what Jimbo wants, I do think at the end of the day, you'll see something happen. We'll see.
I'm fascinated enough by it though. I know we're in the free fall part of it, and I know that, Florida State eventually hits the floor, wins ball games, and let's be honest, probably rights this ship, ends up in a bowl. I'm not telling you they're going to a New Year's Six, but I just think it's interesting while you're in this free fall to take a look at all that stuff. We're putting a ball on it after this as Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
I'm sad alone in a boggy marsh, totally motionless except for her heart. Mud flowed up into lumps, pajamas. She totally confused all the passing piranhas.
If you have access to a computer or just the internet in general, I hope for your eyes' sake, I just hope, as we put a bow on it here on Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio, you haven't seen the uniforms Florida plans on wearing Saturday. My God. Florida has decided that they are going to wear gator scale uniforms that are like this kind of very dark grayish green with these dark green helmets with the gator head on the side of it. And the pants don't have the scales on them, but the cleats do. And this look is just, I understand why Adidas has gained the ground it has over Nike when I look at the uniforms like that, because that reminds me, it literally looks like one of those monstrosities that Adidas would put out there a couple years ago. It does.
Yeah, as ugly as they are, and as much as I tend to agree with you, and I think most people would, I'm going to tell you right now that I still think that the
recruit's really going to like it, because I knew that's exactly what you were going to say. A recruit's going to look at that and say, I want to play dress up like a crocodile. Whatever, man. I mean, to each their own. Good luck with that, Florida, but God. Thanks, Drew.
You're welcome.
Thanks to you guys for listening. Mike and Mike's up next, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Looking at the tape in Miami, it was very evident that it was an extremely physical, hard-fought football game. A lot of big licks passed both ways in that game. Both teams had their moments up and back. Very physical football game. Two teams that competed extremely hard. A lot of plays made in the game. I think you saw both teams grow in that game. I think they made some plays, especially the second half. We made plays in first half and second half. All of our younger players kept growing up. I think up front. The games were very physical. Offensive, defensive line was very physical. A lot of big hitting in the secondary on tackling. But, unfortunately, they made one more play than we did. We got to find a way to, capitalize on a couple of opportunities a little better in the first half, but then finish games off at key moments in the second half. We made key drives, made key kicks, made key stops at times, but just, they made one more than we did, one more play than we did, and we got to find a way to get that out. Kicking game was really good. I thought Ricky kicked the ball well. Logan punted the ball, did a great job with his inside the 10 kicks, giving us a chance to pin some guys back. Unfortunately, we had the one return that came off. To come up with a touchdown off of that. But other than that, I thought our kicking game was pretty good on the day. I got to field a few more punts. We had a couple punts that hit the ground that we got to make sure that we gave up about 45, 50 yards of field position on that could have helped a little bit. But, still hard-fought, physical game. Kids play with a lot of heart, a lot of guts. We got to find a way to continue to do what we do and just do it a little bit better. And, again, Miami was a good team, give them credit. But at the same time, we had opportunities, and we got to do our things just a little bit better at times. Questions?
Jimbo, with the loss and where your team is right now, I know you can only keep pushing forward, but what are some things that you try to do differently or maybe try to,
do what you do better. You do differently. We're on the verge of doing things. You just got to keep coaching better, put him in position, and we've gotten better. You watch the offensive line has gotten a lot better. James gets better. We made plays. Red zone offense got a little bit better. Made some key third down pickups. We got to find a way to, get off the field a couple times on third down. We got in zone twice on third down and had double coverage and got balls thrown into double coverage, and they made plays. And we got to clean that up just a little bit. But, just continue. Special teams keeps getting better and better each week. We just got to continue to coach and find a way. We played good football teams, but, we're a good football. We should be making that one other play in those games. So we got to find a way to do that. Just coach it better and, try to get the kids in a better position, understanding exactly what they got to do and how they got to do it.
Jimbo, is there an update on Keith Gavin?
Keith's banged up, so I don't know yet officially, but it looked like a pretty good low sprain.
So who would it be? Jackson? Who?
Oh, you got Jackson. You got Tamron Terry, who I've said he and DJ Matthews have really been outstanding in practice the last 2 weeks. About on the verge. You saw us put DJ in the end. On the verge of getting into play and felt very. If it wouldn't have been the Miami game, it's such a competitive game the whole way through, as far as the intensity and some of that rivalry that goes with playing a young player, we got to get them going, and they're going to play well. Jackson, feel very comfortable with him getting in and doing things, and our tight ends keep growing in the passing game along with our backs.
Coach, it seems like Cam Akers really found his rhythm in the second half. Can you comment on the progress that he's made, and does it seem like he's ready to turn the corner?
Well, he's turned the corner, but what we've talked to him about is that, like I said last week, not every run is there's another huge improvement from last week. That not every run is a touchdown. They're learning to take that 4-yard run, that 5-yard run, that 6. And all of a sudden, your size and speed, you'll start breaking those runs, in which he did, running north-south. It's not that he doesn't like the physicality. He's just used to being able to bounce around guys and outrun guys and make plays. At this level, there's good players. And he's learning to run behind his pads and low level with power. He's doing a great job. And he's had a run. Him and Jaquez both. Jaquez, had 11 for 90? And he had 20 for 130. They both had excellent days.
Coach, when asked about the team's record, Jaquez mentioned that the team kind of referenced to USC last year, starting 1-3, winning the Rose Bowl. Is that the mindset you're trying to instill in this team? Well, no, and also just that no matter what your record is, you play. See, I know. As fans, and we all have goals, and I know this. And what do we have to play? You got everything to play for. First of all, what if you're a junior eligible draft guy or senior eligible draft guy? What's the NFL looking at? They look at that tape. They see a guy playing his tail off for a team that has suffered some tough losses. That guy's got heart. He's got class. That's a guy I want on my team. He brings us back. He's a guy that could change your organization. And as they play like that, they change your team. That's what they can do here, and as our team, for the pride that they have in each other, and also the past guys that have played here, what we built this program on, and just keep playing what you. There's no reason, no matter what, if you've lost a game or 2 games or 3 games, how hard you play and the way you play should never change when you line up and play. So to say, what's there to play on, the mindset of that, yeah, of course, they want to think that. They could be 1-3 and 1 in the Rose Bowl, of course. Now, what we got to do is learn to prepare and play Duke. I love the outlook there. I love the intensity. I love the focus of that. You know what I'm saying? Because that says that I'm all in on this team and I'm doing everything. But there's so many reasons individually, team-wise, that you just keep playing your tail off, and that's what we build it on and what they're built on. I liked his answer. I didn't know he answered that, but pretty good insight.
Coach, focusing on Cam Akers and Jaquez Patrick, will their performance change how the offense will play at Duke?
No, I mean, we played this way this week. I mean, we're going to do the same thing. We'll run the ball, have balance, and be able to create plays in the passing game. But we'll always have the ability to run the football. And I've said that from the beginning of the year. And we're going to do that. And we've gotten better in the running game with our line, and they've learned to run. So they're going to get their touches. There's no doubt.
Could you go into your thought process about punting twice in Miami territory in the first quarter?
Yeah, about the 38, 40-yard line. And our defense is playing well. They hadn't had anything. You get it back, and you're out of field goal range. If you miss, you give them the ball at midfield, allow them to be aggressive. You pin them back. We have a great defense. You get it back. Both times we got it back around our own 50 or 40 with a chance to go back and score points. And with being fourth, one of them was 4th and 7, so your odds of picking up 4th and 7 aren't very good. We missed a read on 3rd and 7, and the other one we had a drop on about a 3rd and 6. We had a drop route over there that would have got us a first down. So why not pin them back, in which they never got first downs hardly on any of those drives.
Jimbo, you mentioned the lost yardage. Are you going to look at someone else at punt returner?
No, he just got to get there. He'd been getting there. There were questionable things. They were those ones where you're slicing away, and just probably didn't want to take a chance. But he can do that. Go ahead and be a little more gutsy and tancy as he grows in that. No, I mean, he's doing a great job. He'd been fielding the ball extremely well. There was 2 punts that he let, and both of them were balls that were slicing and were cut across. If he was on the right hash on the punt, they were kicked on the opposite side of the field. They were trying to kick it that way, and they sliced it, missed the kick, and just got to go get it. You know what I'm saying? And he can go get it. And it was a wad of people, because one time he went to get it, if you remember, and he about got hit. And I think, just give him experience and keep coaching him on that. But, those can hurt. But, no, T-Mac's done a great job of fielding punts, and his ball security has been excellent. And he had a couple nice little returns.
In the first couple games, we really saw Nyquan where he kind of struggled to get in a rhythm. Do you think what he did down the stretch of that Miami game could be the spark he needs to really get going?
I hope so. I hope so.
Coach, James really performed well in that fourth quarter. I believe 9 of 10, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. How have you seen him improve reading the middle of the field? He had Izzo down the middle of the seam there. How have you seen him kind of improve his reads?
He reads the middle of the field. It's just, just experience of being in there and the different looks. He gets better and better. He understands. He can come off and regurgitate to you exactly what he sees. You know what I'm saying? And most of the time, he's about 90%, 95% right on everything as we check things on the sideline. So it's really good. And then now it's just a matter of going ahead and trusting yourself. And as that game went on, you could see him just the trust factor come on, and he started pulling the trigger. And it's just all part of growing, which he did last week at times. The first week he did it at times. But like I say, he's played 3 games. But his progress has been really good.
Jimbo, not that it makes anybody feel better in the locker room, but like some of the games you played this year, can they be, I guess, examples of how thin the line can be between winning and losing sometimes?
Whether you won them or you lost them. And that's the thing we have done. Right? We had always found a way to win those games. For the most part, we won 82% of our games or 83% of our games. And we'd always found that one extra play. And that's what we're setting there short. But you show them how close, but how far. And then even when you win them, now, we're all feeling good, but really how close you are to that line the other way. But that's the way that's the way college football is. Our league has gotten better. College football, the parity's going across the board. I mean, for the most part, that's kind of the way it goes. I mean, you saw this week and I don't mean, there's been upsets all over the place. Teams that get upset. And I think there's a lot more parity out there than we realize. And that's the line you show. Look, right here. If you can show somebody, if I do that different, I can get there. You know what I'm saying? And it gets closer and closer each week, and we've had some tough ones, but there's no doubt. The line you walk when you win and lose, it's really not a big – it's a step or two either way.
Jim, I know you've been asked this a couple times since the game, but could you talk a little bit more about the last play? And I think a lot of people would wonder why you wouldn't put 5 DBs at the goal line or in the end zone and try to prevent a touchdown.
Because now if you're at the 20, because you can stick a ball in there, that's the worst thing you can do. When you put him at the line, you're giving him a hole when he can set and throw a slant, a fade, a seam, which uncontested with a body running free and the way guys back shouldered like they did there in that press. T-Mac hadn't had any. He had been man-to-man coverage the whole day. I don't think a ball was caught on him. He had one interference call, which was a very tightly contested play the first, second half. And when you play, I love on offense, if they do that when I'm inside the 20, at that range, that's the best thing to throw against. Because you can stick seam routes. Now you can call your offense. Now, they got a fade, and we got our best player, one of our best corners on somebody. And if you played zone, we had played zone earlier and gotten hit twice, if you go back and think about it. The 3rd and 20 was a cover 2 zone, and the 3rd and 12 or 15, they run the dig route in there was a zone route. So we felt more comfortable playing man coverage. And the guy had him covered perfectly. We had them all covered perfectly. They made a tremendous throw and catch in what they did. And that's what we'd play better probably.
All right, we're going to go to the phone.
Now, if you're at the 40, or back there, 35, 40, that's a different animal. And those are already in field goal range, but if you're at the 20, you're now thinking, what yard line were they? 20, 22, 23. When you get inside the 25, that's our grade. We're actually inside the 30. But there's a gauge when you can, as you call the game differently in some plays and things you do. Oh, he can make that throw. And plus, what's the difference? If he throws a jump ball fade, the best thing to do on a big receiver is to jam him at the line of scrimmage. You let a big body guy like Auden Tate, we used to do it all the time. You run down there freelance and then go up, they got a better chance of catching it that way than they do the other way, because the other way is you can jam and ride them. Because it's just like a box out becomes and you get a one-on-one true jump ball. They can get down there and actually get their body where they want to put it. When you're guarding them man-to-man, you can press against them from jam them and hip them, ride them, do all those things. It's actually easier to do it from the get-go. A big guy, you never want to let a big receiver get running down there like that in the red zone where he can just body up and play over the top of you. You saw it last night with DeAndre Hopkins. Remember that play with Hopkins last night about the 20 going in? They threw it right over. And when you get them big guys get free, their bodies free, it's harder to stop them then than if you're pressing them. And plus, our guys as big as they were.
In a spot like that, is Kelly, there's not much time to tell you what his defensive call is. Does he go over that with you? Or?
No, you don't have time to do it right there. That's what you got to. And you're calling a game on the offense, defense. You got to call what you think you got to play inside there to stop them from scoring. I mean, that's you don't have time to go back and forth and do all that right there. I mean, if you call timeout, they can set up a play. So, like I say, the big play in that drive. I mean, we can argue that and all you want. We had if we got them down on 4th and 3rd and 10. We had the perfect defense, had them called. We got to make the tackle. And then they're kicking about a 46-yard field goal. But there was plenty of opportunities in that game: offense, defense, special teams, and you got to make the play.
All right, Chris, on the phone, you can ask your question.
Hey, Jimbo. I'm curious. There's been a lot of negative backlash against Charles Kelly the last couple of days. What's your confidence level in him right now?
I have extreme confidence in Charles. Charles is a great football coach. He coached a very good game. They made a couple plays at the end, and he's done a really nice job. So we'll continue. Charles being our coordinator, and we'll go through this year, and hopefully can finish the year very strong.
What do you think are the couple things that hold this team back, maybe playing at a comfortable level? Because there's so much that they can do with those.
I do. I mean, it's consistency. It's focus and consistency, and we got to keep coaching them better. And we got to continue to make sure they understand everything and find that, like I say, that fine line of making that 1 or 2 plays at the right time to get us over the hump. And they got to believe, and they got to just keep playing their tails off. I mean, if there's any one thing, if you said you could go in there and just say, boom, there's the thing, you'd fix it right off the bat. It's human nature, and you got to be able to grind it out in practice, grind it out in everything you do, and we got to coach them better. And we got to do a good job of keeping them in position to be successful.
Jimbo, is one of the positives about Blackman the way he's been able to kind of maybe get out of struggles within the same game? A lot of young guys might get in a funk and
very
not
tough
be
to
able
do.
get it.
Very tough to do, and now we've got to continue to work on getting him out of the gates a little bit. You know what I mean? Which he did here at times. Early in the game, he had a couple things, but we got to get him out of the gates a little bit, which he can do, and which he did actually after in the middle of the first quarter in the first game. You know, we got to get him out of the gates just a little bit better so we can be a little more consistent there. Because we're running the football better. Got to continue to get him out the gates with some throws.
Coach, with your team off to a 1-3 start, do you have to kind of remind them to stay off social media? You had a linebacker complain about.
I remind them of that every day, and there's rules about it, and those things are dealt with. You're not allowed to be on social media. You can read it if you want to. I tell them don't read it. I tell them whether we win or lose. It has nothing to do with 1-3, 3-1, 4-0, 10-0. Stay off social media.
So your linebacker tweeting and Instagramming over the weekend's been dealt with?
That's internally.
Going back to James with that fourth quarter timeout you called right before he threw the touchdown, I guess looking back, how important was that for you to kind of just grab his attention there? And
I thought he had his attention. That really wasn't much. I thought was going to get it. He had made a check at the line on a protection deal, and I thought was going to run it. And he actually got it off with a second. I didn't want to take the chance because I knew the play was important. I called the timeout. He actually got it off. I didn't think I had to call it there as far as because he understood what he did on the play before because he looked at me and said, I got you, you know what I mean, and acknowledged it. But I did that I said, I didn't want him to have to hurry going into that play because he had made a nice check at the line of scrimmage and what he did. So from that standpoint, it was that's why we did that. But he had come over very composed and understood what he did, and we talked about it, and then he went on back. That's a heck of a play. That was a big play.
Is it overstating that timeout did too much for James, or?
I don't know. I think it may have calmed him down. I'll say I don't know if it over. I don't know if it. You have to ask him that, I guess, but you can't do that right now. Do that next year. But I mean, it does probably slowed it down for him. Just let him regroup. You know what I mean? That's one of the things. And I know sometimes when you get to hurrying, you know what I mean, because of the clock, which if you ever watch an NFL game, they go down to, I don't know how they get, they make me nervous sometimes. Them guys ain't, and the silent counts, and they got a trigger, man. They go down there checking all the way down to the thing and get it off. But I told him, you know, just probably did slow it down for him and let him get his breath back again. There's no doubt.
Jimbo, last season on the Showtime show, there was a couple times where you mentioned to your coaches and to Derwin, I think, that wondering if the players were getting the messages. Are you concerned about that at all this year? Has that been an issue?
No, it hasn't been. I mean, we've talked. We communicate. I'm with our unity council a lot. With our seniors. I'm very open in meetings about them having things and making them answer and regurgitate it back. And our communication levels are good. I mean, they seem very good. I mean, it's just, I say this, you just got to, you got to live it all the time. You know what I'm saying? It's not that they don't, but I mean, every second of every minute of every practice of every play, you got to, that's what I think, like Tim had said a minute ago. You're right there, but you got to take that, you got to push through all the time. There's always that, that one little inch. And I talk about it all the time, and I know everybody thinks it's cliches, but 2 or 3 or 4 inches can determine whether your season is phenomenal or average. And I think when you can never quit fighting for that inch. And I think sometimes you got to continue to mature to understand that, there's more in you to get that inch. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the jobs. That's coaching. That's what we got to do as coaches, to get that out of them.
Jimbo, what percentage of your playbook do you think James Blackman is familiar with, and how quickly from week to week to see?
It's not. We're not doing everything. There's no way we're doing everything. I mean, you can't because, and even if you could, there's things you could do, but how well could he do it? You know what I'm saying? And things. But there's plenty in there. I mean, he's doing a lot. He really, and it's enough to be able to move the football and score. And like I say, move the ball. We had 400 some yards of offense against a very good defensive football team. Threw it, had good balance and run and pass, and the things we did. So we've got plenty of offense. There's no doubt.
And how much is he picking up week to week? How much are you able to add on for him?
You do, based on what your game plan is. But this guy now, that's the one thing about it, the thing that excites me the most about him is his ability to learn and learn on the run, but also that once he makes a mistake, doesn't come back and make a lot of the same mistakes twice. You know what I'm saying? And can come off and generally tell you, okay, I understand why I did it. Even if he makes a mistake, I'm not sure. I know. And he'd almost will answer your question for you. You know what I'm saying? Because of the way he thinks. So from that standpoint, I'm excited about where he's going.
Jimbo, with everything, the hurricanes, the cancellations, the postponements, and now the 1-3 record, how tough has this season been for you personally? You've never really dealt with it as a head coach.
No, it's part of life. I mean, it's part of what you do. You line up and you coach. You look at the situation, look at the thing. You don't think about that. Who cares? World don't care. People don't care. You move forward. You look at what you got to fix and go on. I mean, I joke about it, but that's the truth. I mean, and nobody cares what happens to people in the past and all. They're looking at what's going on in the future, and that's what these kids are. It's what I always tell our guys: your windshield's 10 times bigger than your rearview mirror. What matters is in your future. You learn from your past. If you sit and look in the past all day, you never see what's going in front of you. We got some things we're very close to in the front of us that we got to get to. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to push to them, and that's my mindset and how I think.
Have you discussed with administration about rescheduling Louise and Monroe?
I haven't. I mean, that was brought up a long time ago, and I haven't even thought about it, talked about it. You have to ask them.
Is it something you would push for?
I haven't thought about it. I don't know. I mean, that's up to them. I'm just worried about getting ready for Duke.
What could an extra game do for you guys?
Oh, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't. Maybe it could. I guess. Again, I'm not. I'd have to sit and think about it. You know what I'm saying? Not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing. I haven't thought about it.
Jim, in terms of defense, third down especially a concern because you gave up a lot of 3rd and longs in the second half to Miami.
Give up a 3rd and 20 and a 3rd and 12 and 14 into double coverage, yes. Had calls and we just didn't make the plays. There was 2 big ones right there, and then we give up the 2 3rd and 10s on the drive. One was a great play. The other one, we had a good call. We just missed a tackle. So there was 4 of them. There's no doubt. And we worked extremely hard on those.
Is that the play before conquest?
Mm-hmm. Just a whip post. Just a whip. They were just throwing this little short route, man route, to if they get 4 or 5, puts them in better field goal range and come out, and we just didn't get them on the ground. Not on purpose, and the guy didn't do it. Guy ran a good route, and we went to tackle, and we missed a tackle. I don't know who. I can't remember who it was. Their little number 8 made the play. But, we just got to make that play, and they convert.
Jimbo, in looking at the film, how did the offensive line perform?
Better. Still got some things. There's a couple little things we got to do. In the pass protection, we got to seal up a couple inside gaps, but got a couple pressures, but they played much better. We ran the football for over 200 yards. We threw it for 200. Had three or four sacks, I believe it was. A couple pressures that one was critical early. I wish we hadn't got a pressure. We had a chance to throw a touchdown that first drive down there to Nooney that we had to release just a little bit early. And but for the most part, they did a nice job. I mean, they had a couple hits on James, but against who they played against and what they did, they've improved drastically, and hopefully we'll continue to grow this week.
Was that a sign considered how
no doubt. I mean, it shows you how they're grit, and everybody was on them, and them getting pushed and challenged. And you know what they did? They didn't read social media. They lined up and played this week and got better. That's what we got to do this week.
Jimbo, I had a couple of questions about pass defense on just kind of trying to figure out assignments and things like that. On the 3rd and 20, like when you guys are in cover 2, I guess, and is the corner supposed to get deeper, or is the safety supposed to be there quicker, or kind of how does that?
Well, the corner's got to sink to a certain level, and safety's got to get over the top because there's no inside vertical on his side.
So maybe a combination of
a little bit. But safety, that ball.
Well thrown, yeah.
But that ball should almost never get in there.
Gotcha. And then on the first touchdown to Barrios, where he kind of got in the back of the end zone.
China route. Which one you talking about?
The one where
what yard line? The one about the 25 in, or about the 6 or 7?
The 6 or 7.
Supposed to have outside leverage.
That's what I was wondering. Okay, because the safety's inside, right? Okay, thank you.
Yep. He caught 2 of them almost the same route. He caught 2 of them on the same. I mean, one was a China route and the thing. And the other one was, I don't know if he went on the 6 or the one on. That would have been that was actually the second one.
Yeah, the second.
Yeah. See, I knew. The first one was right before they went up 10-3 in the third quarter. That was the fourth quarter. Yeah, that was the one that meant 17-13. Yeah, we were in rack coverage. That's why I said we had a single high and a helper in the middle.
Coach, follow up again, a couple that you said how close the last couple of games have been that didn't go your way. Have you brought up to your players, or do you get it out there that you guys right now have the number 1 strength of schedule? You played.
I didn't say that, but I just told them we played good people. I didn't know. I didn't look at strength of schedule, which I would assume would be right. As we found out, I told you Wake was a pretty good football team too. They played Clemson's tail off, had some great chances in that, but we had the opportunities. But I've told them they've known we've played good teams. There's no doubt, and that how close we are and how close we have open communication about that. But I said again, it's about us. It's about us making that play and making every play, not leaving anything. As I say, no rock left unturned. You got to practice that way. And again, I like their mindset, their capacity. We got to do it, but they've responded with great energy. We just got to get a little more technical, and I got to coach better. We got to do a better job again, putting them in there, making them do it, get it right, and show them how to do it and help them, because we're all in it together. It's not their fault. That's us. They ain't doing it right. We got to coach them better.
Jimbo, when you look at Duke, just what kind of challenges do they present, and can it be a challenge to go on the road for an unfamiliar opponent?
Oh, it is. You don't play Duke a lot, but we've played them a couple. We played them in the ACC championship game here a couple years ago. We played them up there in 11, I remember, and then we played them down here. Was it 12? I think we played them 11 and 12. 11 up there, 12 down here. Then 13, we played them for the championship. They've done a great job. They got another great year, 4-2. They're right on the verge of winning all their games. Defensively, very dynamic, 4-2-5 look. A lot of robber coverages, quarters coverage, halves, 2-man, blitz, love to blitz you, coming pressure, offense. Cut does a great job. Quarterback runs, quarterback power runs, all the different runs, the variations, the routes they do, really good in the passing game, kicking game, cover kicks extremely well, very disciplined, good returners. I mean, they're a good football team. They're 4-2 for a reason. They're playing really good, and they're an older group. So they're an older group.
Coach, I want to ask you about a couple injured guys, Trey Marshall, Landon Dickerson.
They're all being evaluated right now. Both of them were pretty significant. I mean, Trey got banged, that'll go day by day. He had a concussion-type scenario. The other guys are ankles, and we'll have to wait and see how they – sometimes when I say an ankle, if you say one now, by how people heal, I've seen guys that couldn't walk them on Monday and can play on Thursday, or sometimes, and some guys vice versa. You know what I'm saying? So that'll all be evaluated as we go. I mean, we'll have to see.
And Hoskins, I think it was a neck sprain up at Wake.
He's fine. He played. He was good. He was good to go.
Coach, the team shut down Miami in the first half. Did the defense run out of gas in the second half because of their offense's unproductivity in the first half?
No. They were off the field in the first half. They wouldn't have many plays. And one of the reasons they helped shut them down is because we moved the ball on offense, and we were very productive on offense. The defense was only out there a limited number of plays. Miami only had 57 yards, so they weren't on the field very long. And we did a great job of pinning them back in field position the whole day, which helped our defense greatly, and our defense took advantage of it. But they didn't play too many plays. Second half, we gave up the first drive and then 2 other big drives. But we were moving the ball like crazy on offense in the second half and moved it on the first half. We had almost 170 yards. So they didn't play a lot of plays in the first half. They played more in the second half. And the big thing was not giving up those third downs. We got to get off the field on those third downs a couple times and go.
Jimbo, do you have, as far as James, the way he, again, late in games seems to be so dialed in, and earlier in the games has some struggles, is there anything you can do, or have you thought of anything that you can do to help him?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of little different things you can do and how you get him to think. And sometimes it's not wanting to make a mistake. You know what I mean? Not wanting early in the game. And at the end, man, we got to go. The blood gets flowing, the mind, you just relax and get in the moment. And you see what they've done. You see what they're playing. You see the speed of the game. You see, and the guy hadn't been out there very much. I mean, just the more he goes out there, the better he's going to learn to start, because he's going to get used to that pregame warm-up. He's going to get used to how the game starts, the speed of the game, what people do, recognizing, okay, I've seen that before, I've seen that before, I've seen that before. You know what I mean? There's no substitute for experience. And a lot of that has to come with experience and what you can do, and experience that I'll try to do as a coach to get him off to a better start with some things.
So you mentioned he doesn't want to make the mistake. So do you get the sense he plays a little bit freer when he's playing from behind because he makes a mistake?
I don't think because he wasn't really from behind in the others, but just seeing what they do on defense. I mean, his knowledge of being out there. He hadn't been out there on the field. And how many games has he started? And it's like you go out and do something. Once you start writing a paper, for instance, I always remember when I was in English class, I liked to write. Hardest thing was getting it started. Then once I got it started, the ideas flowed, and you would just write it out. You know what I mean? That's kind of how you play sometimes. Just like in a 2-minute drive. The hardest completion, you know what it is? First completion. Once you get the first one, usually those things start to flow. You heard Aaron Rodgers talk about it last night. Once you get that first one, you get going, then all of a sudden, okay, here we go, boom, boom, boom. And just like in a game, you just got to get a jump start and get a couple things going. It's not that you're hesitant or scared or you're free and behind. You just got to sometimes getting started is the hardest thing. Slowest part of a race is when? The start. It always is. You run faster as you run longer. And it's kind of as your blood gets flowing, your mind gets reacting to things, and you learn to do that as you get more mature.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
We're good. Thank you.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.